Okay, we are picking up on Mem Vavam Beis. We are, if you look at the Tosos on the right hand side, Marzutra, it's 4 lines up from there. So the Gemara was talking about the Reish Galusa had talked to Rav Sheshes, and he was telling him about the different dinner protocols that the Persians had when they were eating. So the Gemara picks up and it says, "Ma'im Rishonim, mehechem atzilin." So he asked him. So Rav Sheshes was asking this Reish Galusa. He said when they're washing hands at the beginning of the meal, and this is not talking about washing hands because their hands were tamei. They were washing their hands just because their hands were dirty and they wanted to be able to eat. So he asked them when they would wash their hands at the beginning of the meal, mehechem atzilin, where would they start washing from? Which person they start washing with? So Amar Lei. So the Reish Galusa answered, "Min hagadol." They would start from the most important person that was in the group. That's who would wash his hands first. So Rav Sheshes asked him, Yeshiv Gadol v'yishmor yadav ad shenoton l'kulan. Are you going to say that the most prominent person is going to sit there and wash his hands, and then he's going to have to wait and make sure that they don't get dirty until everyone else washes and they start bringing out all the food? So he answered him, Amar Lei, la'alter ma'asu taka kamei. No, as soon as the most prominent person washes his hands, they would bring, remember, every person would get his own separate table, little table or tray that they would eat on in those days. So they would bring out this table for him that had the food on it, and he could start eating right after he washed his hands. He didn't have to wait until the other people would wash their hands. So then Rav Sheshes asked, "My machronim ehecham atzilin." My machronim, when they would wash their hands again at the end of the meal, again just to remove the dirt. So where would they start from? Amar Lei min hakatan. They would start from the lowest person that was there, the least important person that was there. So Rav Sheshes asked him. He said, "V'gadol Yasef Yadam izahamos at shenoton kulan." Is the most important person going to have to sit there, and he's going to have to wait with his dirty hands while everyone else has their hands washed, and he's just sitting there like with his hands all filthy, not able to clean them? So Amalei said to him, "Lo masalka taka makame adimitni ma'ilagabe." No, they wouldn't take away the dinner table from the most important person until he washed his hands. So he was able to continue eating. It's not like he was sitting and waiting for them to come around with the water basin and be able to clean his hands. He would be able to continue eating until they would bring him the water basin. Then they take away his table. Then he would wash his hands. So the Gemara said, so that was the Reish Galusa was telling Rav Sheshes the way the Persians would act during the meal. So Rav Sheshes said to him, Rav Sheshes, you told me what the Persians used to do. I don't know anything about that, but I have a brisa that I learned. And the brisa says like this about how we would eat dinner. The Tanya, but what is the way that they would lean when they were eating a meal? Bizman changed mitos, when they would have 2 beds. Gadol Mesa Barosh, would have the most important person would be at the top. V'sheni Lolamati Menu, and the second one would be underneath him, meaning by his feet. So that way, because again he was reclining down. So if the more chashuv person wanted to talk to the number 2 person, he'd be able to just gesture without like turning his head back to look up if he was above him. Bisman Shein Shalosh Mitos, and when they would have 3 beds that were there, meaning if they had 3 people that were there, so then Gadol Mesa Barosh, you would have the most important person would lay down, he would be reclining first. Shein Lolamala Himenu, and the second one to him was going to be above him, and Shlishi Lolamata, and the third one in prominence was going to be below him. And that way, again, so you might say, if that's the case, then think of it like this: the most important person's in the middle. Now he's going to have the second in command is going to be above him, and the third in command is going to be below him. So Rashi points out, he says, so even though it's really if the most important person wants to speak to the second in command, he's going to have to kind of like strain up to be able to do it. But he said that it's more that it wouldn't be appropriate to have that you would have the most important person is here, and then 2 and 3 are going to be following after him. So if he wants to speak to the third person, he's going to have to like shout down past to the second one. So even though he's going to have to strain up a little bit, but it's not the end of the world, and therefore they would kind of put him, he would be in the middle, he would have the second in command in that situation would be above him, and you would have the third in command would be below him. That way he could gesture to both of them and be able to talk to them equally. Okay. Now the Gemara. Then the Gemara says the next part of the meal. So now they would bring out the water, and now again they bring the water out now because they want to wash their hands before they were eating bread. So what would be the order that they would wash the hands? So the most important person would be the one that would wash first. Ma'im achronim, when they were washing their hands at the end of the meal in order to do ma'im achronim before benching. Bisman shehem chamisha maskilim min hagadol. If there are 5 people there or less, then they would start with the most important person. And again, the reason why they were doing that is because in those days, they did not bench from a sitter, so they needed to let the person who's going to be benching have some time to prepare in his mind so that he can just make sure that he has the whole order of benching in his mind, so he'd be able to say it over to everybody. So if there's 5 people or less, then you start from the most important person, and he washes first, and then he gets benching ready while the other people are going to wash. When you have more than five, even up to 100 people, and again, this doesn't mean that you have 100 people. It means any amount of people that are more than 5. So in that situation, you would start from, again, let's say you have 10 people there. So you would start with the 10, you would go from 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. You would just have, five of the guys would wash their hands. Then when there are 5 people left, then you would give it, then you would give it to the most important person that was left, because you now have this 5-person countdown, and that way he'd be able to have time to prepare to bench. And the place, and the Brisa finishes off by saying that the place where the person who gets Mayim Achronim, the one who's given Mayim Achronim first, he's the one he's given the honor of leading the benching. So that's why we want to be able to give the most important person time, so he can prepare for the benching that he's going to be doing. Besides Leila Rav, the Amar Rav Chia Barashi Amar Rav, Kol Hanotu Yadav Achron Otchila Hu Mizon Levrachah. Whoever washes his hands first, he's the one that's set aside. He's the one that prepares to do the benching for everybody else. Now, as the Gemara that we had a few blot ago, it just repeats it word for word. Rabbi Rav Chia Hav Yasu B'Sudasa Kamei de Rabbi. Rabbi and Rav Chia were eating before Rabbi. Amarle Rabbi LeRav, and Rabbi said to Rav, go wash your hands. So Chazir the Kamarsis and Rabbi Chia saw that Rav was very very shaken up that Rabbi had told him to wash his hands. Like, he didn't know why he was washing his hands. He thought maybe because either he was saying like enough already, you've eaten enough, it's time to stop eating and just get ready to wash your hands. Or maybe he thought that like he was eating, his hands were all dirty, so he was telling him that he should stop eating and he should clean his hands. So he said, Amalei, Rav Chia said to him, Bar Pachsi, you're a Talmud Chacham. I am a Berachos Mizana Karmelach. He was telling you to wash your hands because he wants you to start preparing for benching, because he's honoring you, even though Rebbe was more chashav than Rav, but you have the most chashav person is able to honor someone else with benching. So he says he just wanted to honor you with the ability to lead benching, so that's why he's telling you to do it. So don't get so nervous. Tana Rabbanan, Mechabdin lo bedrachim v'lo b'gsharim. We do not honor, even though we're talking about you're supposed to honor the most important person by a meal, but there are times where you don't honor the most important person. When is that? Either if you're traveling on the road or if you're bridges. Meaning, if someone is, if you're by traffic, okay, you're on 695 and the lanes are merging in, and you see that in the car next to you, in the merge on lane, you see as your Rebbe is coming there. You are not supposed to stop to let him in, to get in. If it's the normal flow of traffic, you should be doing it. Rashi explains the reason why you're not supposed to do it is because it's dangerous. If you have people that are braking all of a sudden when traffic's coming, and you're going to stop to let people in, so it's going to cause accidents. So of course, yes, if there's just the two of you on the road, and it's not going to cause any log jam of traffic, so stop and let your Rebbe go before you. But if you're talking about that it's in a flow of traffic and everything's moving smoothly, then you should not stop to let him in. You should continue driving. Same thing if they're on, and again, the Gemara's not talking about driving because they had donkeys then, so I don't know how fast they went. But and the Gemara also, and the other time is if they're on a bridge. If you're on a bridge, again, which the bridges that they built then were very rickety, they weren't very sturdy. So again, you shouldn't stop and let someone else go before you. You're on the bridge, keep walking till you get to the other end of the bridge, and you shouldn't stop to let your Rebbe in. Turning now to Mem Zayin Amud Aleph. V'lo b'yadayim zahamos, and also when it comes to washing your hands when they're dirty, also you are not supposed to to tell someone that it's not appropriate to tell your Rebbe, hey Rebbe, your hands are dirty, go wash them. So it's not appropriate, so you shouldn't do that either. So here's a little story to back that up. Ravin and Abai were going on the way, and Abai was Ravin's Rebbe. Okay? So Kadme Chamara de Ravin le Abai, and Ravin let his donkey go before Abai's donkey. Lo Amarle Nezamar, and he didn't say, Rebbe, why don't you go before me with your donkey? So Abai said to himself, Midasala Kaim Rabbanim Imarava Gasle Daite, that since this rabbi came from the west, from Eretz Yisrael, meaning since Ravin came from Eretz Yisrael, because he used to go back and forth to learn Torah by Rabbi Yochanan, then he would come back to Bavel to give over the Torah that he was learning. So he says, it seems to me, by the fact that he didn't let my donkey go before his, he's become a bit conceited, in that he didn't let my donkey go first. So, okay. When they came to the entrance of the Beis Medrash, Amar Lei, so then Ravin said to his Rebbe Abai, Nezamar, go ahead, Rebbe, please go in front of me. So Amar Lei, so Rebbe said to him, Abai said to him, and until now I wasn't your Rebbe. Why is it that when I was on the road before, you didn't tell me to go ahead, but now that we're by the Beis Medrash, you did tell me to go ahead? So Amar Lei, so Ravin answered in Hachi Amar Rabbi Yochanan, that this is what Rabbi Yochanan said. You're only supposed to give someone honor to go first, only if it was a doorway that has the mezuzah on it. So Gemara says, the ispe mezuzah in, the last mezuzah lo. You're only talking about a doorway that has an entrance, a doorway that has a mezuzah on it. But if the doorway doesn't have a mezuzah on it, then you don't need to honor your rebbe or someone more important to you by letting them go first. So elama'ata beis haknesses, so beis hamedrash, so a shul and a beis medrash, which theoretically don't have to have a mezuzah on them. Are you going to say the last beis mezuzah hachinami de mechavdin? You're going to say that you're not going to honor your rebbe? I mean, try that. Like, you're walking into the beis medrash with all the students, and the Rosh Hashiva's walking in, and you kind of like bump them aside, and you're going to go first. It's not going to fly. So when it says we're talking about that anytime you have a situation, if you have an entranceway that is roy for a mezuzah, that's fit to have a mezuzah on it, then in those situations you're supposed to be honoring the person who's more important than you and letting them go first. But if it's in a place of danger, again, like let's say you're on the road and merging in, and if you're going to stop and let them in, it's going to cause accidents. Or if you're on a bridge, which there's a danger that the more people that are on the bridge, it's going to collapse. Then you don't do it. Then you just keep going on your way, and then and everything's fine. Okay, the Gemara says next. Amar Rav Yehuda Brei Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas from Shmei Rav. That the people who are eating at a table, when everyone's eating together, they're not allowed to eat anything until the person who made the bracha sat and ate the food until he tasted the food first. Yasif Rav Sifra of Akamar and ate the food first. So Yasif Rav Sifra of Akamar litom itmari, and he said that it meant to taste the food, not just to eat the food, but even to taste the food. So Gemara says, "L'may nafkamina." What's the difference whether we're talking about it was to eat the food or was to taste the food? Gemara answers, "Shechayav adam lam revelation rabba." Really, there's no difference at all. It's just that he was very careful. He wanted to say over everything in the name of his Rebbe. So whatever his Rebbe happened to say, taste. So he wanted to make sure that he was saying over the word taste. But really, the Gemara is saying the same thing, that when you have people that are sitting at a table and one person is making a bracha for everybody, then everyone that's sitting at the table is not allowed to eat the bread until the person who made the motzi for them first sat and had the bread himself. So you have this comes up every Shabbos. You're sitting at your Shabbos table and you're making lecha mishnah for everybody. So a lot of people, some people what they'll do is they'll cut the challah and they want to be polite, so they'll start passing the challah out to everybody. And everyone's going to start eating from the bread. He said, you're not supposed to do that. You're really supposed to make the bracha, and you're supposed to take a slice of bread first before everyone else does what they're doing. Okay, next piece of Gemara, Tan Rabbanan, Shnai Mamtin Zelazeh Bekara. If you have two people that are eating from a dish together, so then one should wait for the other. If you have two people eating from a main dish, and one of them stops eating because he wants to drink something, or one of them stops eating because he wants to get up and go get a cup of water from the kitchen, so the other person who's eating from that same bowl should wait until the other person comes back, because that's not because it's not halach, it's just a polite thing to do. It says shlosha ein mamtinim, but if you have three people, then you don't need to wait for one another. If three people are eating together and one of them gets up because he wants to go get a cup of water, then the other two people are able to continue eating. When the people are eating together, so the one that said the motzi is the one that served the food first. And again, the reason why is because, as we said, that normally the way they would do it is that the person who was the most important would be honored with making the bracha first. So therefore, they would. So he's the one that served first. But if someone wants to give over the honor to his Rebbe or to someone who's more important than him, then he's able to do it. But you got to remember that we said that even though we're saying that, like, if people are eating a meal together, that you can give the meal out to some, that you can get, if people are eating together, that you could, one person give honor to someone else. If you are having company in your house, again, it's more important that you, the balabayas, whoever it is that owns the house, is the one that's supposed to be giving out the challah, because you're going to be giving out very generously because you're the host, so you're going to be giving the food out to everybody, as opposed to if someone else is cutting the challah, he doesn't know how much is left, he doesn't know what's in the kitchen. So I guess if, let's say, that your wife only made 2 small challahs that Shabbos, and you have 30 people eating at the table, maybe cut smaller pieces. Okay. Let's do one more piece of Gemara. Rabbi Bar Bar Chana hava asik le livrei be Rav Shmuel bar Rav Katina. Rabbi Bar Bar Chana was marrying off his son to the daughter of Rav Shmuel bar Katina. Kadam v'yasti v'kamti le livrei. So he sat down with his son before the wedding, and he said to him, "Ain't about say," and he wanted to teach him a piece of Gemara. So he said to him, "Ain't about say a rasha liptsoa, that a person the person who makes the bracha on the challah is not allowed to start cutting the challah until everyone that's sitting around the table answers amen. The amen is considered to be, it's a big chiddush, that the amen is considered to be part of the brachos. You have to wait until everyone finishes saying amen, and then when they finish saying amen, then you could start cutting the challah. So Rav Chizah says, pirova onim, that you have to wait until the majority of people finish answering amen. So Gemara says, Amalei Rami Bar Chama, so he said to him, Maishna Ruba, what's the reason why if the majority don't finish saying amen, that you're not supposed to cut the challah because the bracha, that kati lo kal your bracha, because the bracha is not yet ended until they say amen, miyutanami lo kal your bracha. If you even have one person that didn't finish saying amen, the bracha is still not going to be complete, because you need every single person to finish saying amen in order to fulfill the bracha. So Gemara says, Amalei said to him, Shani Yomer, Kolana Amen, Yosef Midai, Eino Elato, that whoever is going to say an amen that's longer than normal, that's longer than necessary, then he's not doing part of the bracha. So when the Gemara, we'll stop here, but when the Gemara is saying that when a person is answering amen, and we're going to learn, first of all, there's no shir tomorrow night. Shir is Wednesday night at 7:55 because of the fast. There's no shir tomorrow night. But the Gemara is saying that when a person is saying amen, then you're not supposed to be stretching it out too long, and therefore the majority people, if you have one guy that's like really that guy that's going for 15 seconds to break a record, you don't have to wait for him because he's not saying amen. The bracha is really dumb because everyone else answered properly, and this other person who's doing it long did not answer properly.